Hi, everyone. We're going to get started. First of all, thank you so much for joining us today for this session, as well as taking time out of your busy lives to join us at Conga Connect. We really appreciate it. Today, we're going to be talking about Picarro's transformation, their journey with Conga and Forsys. My name is Joanne Cheevers. I work on the partner marketing team here at Conga. I'll be introducing these fine guys today and also fielding any questions from the audience. So feel free to hold on to those questions until the end. So this is actually a great story about innovation and digital transformation and a really wonderful example of how a company like Picarro is modernizing their CLM with the right partners at its side. We're lucky today to have two fantastic speakers with us, Parag Jain from Picarro, as well as Becky from Forsys. Thank you again for being here to share your experience. A special thank you goes out to Forsys, our trusted partner here at Conga, for your continued collaboration and again for all your support in today's event. So without I will hand it over.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to Conga Connect. I hope all of you are enjoying so far. Cool. What we're gonna do is just dive into the overall implementation of Picarro, how we did transform their existing CLM to Conga CLM, and what all challenges we went through and how we overcome those challenges. What are some of those innovative ideas that were implemented as part of the implementation and all that. Before that, I'd like to have Parag introduce himself, and then we'll start getting into the details. Please,
Thank
Parag.
you, Puneet. Happy to be here. I hope everybody's having a good time at Conga Connect. And what I'm here to do is share our journey of going through a no contracting system to a sophisticated and best-in-class Conga CLM system. So I'll talk about our journey on how we made that happen in a traditional manufacturing company. So with that, I'm Parag Jain, everyone. I am VP of IT, Business Systems, and Security. A lot of words. But in my role, what I'm responsible for is technology strategy, drive business process innovation, and ensure security and scalability of our operations globally.
And my name is Puneet Baxi. I'm the Managing Director with Forsys. Forsys is a trusted strategic partner with Conga. Myself has done a lot of CLM implementations globally, been into the CLM or contracting world for over 15, 20 years. I was also part of the Conga before. I worked at Conga. I worked at other procurement side, buy-side contracts, company called GEP, and designed the whole contract management system there. And now I'm managing the global Conga practice with Forsys, right? Running as a trusted partner with Conga. So with that, we'll get started. Parag, why don't you tell what Picarro is about and what do they do?
Sure. So Picarro is a world leader in high-precision scientific instruments that are used in natural gas, industrial solutions, and environmental applications. So our product and technology is utilized to measure natural gas leaks, emissions, water and air quality to an accuracy, degree of accuracy that needs to match world's top institutions, research institutions, regulated industries and bodies, along with private partners. So we are into high technological systems along with analytical solutions, primarily in climate tech industry.
All right, thank you. I'll give a little bit brief about what Forsys is all about, right? So like I said, we are a strategic partner with Conga. We help achieve faster and effective transformations, be it your just the CLM implementation, CPQ implementation, or the whole lead to revenue cycle. We do provide a great level of assessments and advisory services to begin with, to make sure that we are doing the full-blown scanning of your existing business processes, and then identifying the specific pain points and then taking them step-by-step approach to resolve all those pain points and how to make your streamlined processes there, right? We also were part of Conga's implementation with Hitachi Vantara, Hitachi Energy, Nomura that you heard earlier on the keynote stage. So we are the only partner so far in Conga world where we can do the Conga Advantage platform implementation. Okay. We also have built some custom accelerators to speed up the implementation cycle. Usually companies always ask, how can we reduce this implementation cycle? Why does it have to be a year or 2 year long? How can we reduce that so we can see the ROI pretty quickly, right? So we do have those custom built accelerators, which does help at multiple different stages of the implementation to take them live in a very short time of the overall implementation cycle. We are also always committed to drive the tangible results. Have done 100+ implementations for both CPQ and CLM in the of Conga specifically, right? We also support the flexible hybrid implementation methodology, which does help how your current IT cycle, how you're doing your deployments on your existing implementation and all that. So we do adjust our cycles as well to be able to make sure that we are not going off of your current IT cycles, right? That makes IT people happy always. All right, so we also have one of the last point I would like to highlight. We have also developed the AI-enabled managed services, specifically those L1 support cases, right? All of those can be easily, quickly identified and answered in those AI managed services, right? We can provide more information. If you can visit our expo hall and visit our Forsys booth, we can provide more details into all of this going further, right? I also like to mention we are like 10-year-old company. I joined Forsys about 16 months now. But the overall founders of the Forsys, they're coming from Cisco world and how they built the whole Cisco CPQ platform back in the days. Right? And that's when they really see the value of CPQ platform to be built in and bring in those whole CPQ experience into building this company. Okay. So with that, I would really like to get into the details of this topic, of this session, right? Many of you have seen and worked through the contracts, right? Treating contracts as your living systems rather than being the dead documents, right? People generally think, oh, I have all my contracts in my shared drive. I'm all good, right? No, those are dead documents sitting in your shared drive. You're not making the best use out of it. And we'll get into the details why and what is that, what does that mean, right? One of the second quote that I learned last week, I was in Scotland attending the World Commerce and Contracting event. That's where I learned that second quote, changing from working on contracts to contracts that work for you. It was a very strong statement that exactly resonated to how Picarro made those contracts work for them, right? They were just sitting in the repository, not doing anything. Having centralized repository, of course, is a first task for any contracting system to get, but making the most out of it and make those contracts speak for you, work for you, and give the outcome, tangible outcomes for you, that is what the target should be. And that's where we at Forsys also come in to really drive you to make those tangible results come to life. Okay? So with that, I think we'll start with the question. Parag, what were the standard contract lifecycle challenges that you've seen or you faced in a typical industry like Picarro?
So we had plenty of our own share of complexities, but I would share a handful of them that stood out for us. Starting with complex contract structures, because we had multiple business units to support, starting with natural gas, industrial solutions, environmental, they all having their own sets of terms and conditions and SLAs and duration. And on top of it, the highlight was we have hardware, software, subscription, and management services. So all of this created fragmentation and risk because all of these different contracts by BU had to go through their own set of approvals, life cycle. So it just created a lot of risk and fragmentation for everybody that was involved in the process from the get-go. The other challenge for us was having this fragmented process in place created compliance and regulatory risk. Not having visibility to the industries that we need to and the regulatory bodies that we need to be compliant of. For example, EPA, NOAA, ISO, and GDPR. Being in these niche industries like natural gas, we are subject to a lot of regulatory adherence and compliance, and it is very important for us to ensure that from data privacy laws, data protection laws, emission laws, we are compliant at all times. So it is very important for us as part of contracting lifecycle to be mindful of those, have a centralized visibility of what they are, and that is where this whole journey started, that we did not have that visibility, and it only added to the complexity. The third challenge was delays in time to revenue. The entire process was manual, all the way from quotation to by the time we place a PO and sales order with the customer, and the time it gets to recognize the revenue. So that entire process was taking multiple quarters. So being through that journey, now I can happily say that cycle has been brought down to weeks in some cases and to few months, depending upon geography and regulatory bodies involved. So that was pretty complex for a company like us that has so much complexity and a presence across 100 countries. So we had to be compliant at all times because it poses a lot of risk for the business. The last but not the least risk was data management or data governance. Having NetSuite ERP and traditional CRM CPQ within NetSuite created a lot of traditional legacy processes, and having people understand data governance when it comes to CLM and having a centralized data flow, that was a big complex to begin with. So those were some of our niche challenges as part of our journey.
So as part of that, that's a very good point. Data governance. How do you see those integration gaps that existed in any contract? I mean, there's a lot of companies do face those challenges, right? Integration is always a challenge, and the biggest benefit for any company or anybody to have that seamless integration between multiple systems is to, of course, save time on not deduplication of data, bringing that same data, type in once and bring it over into CPQ, CLM, flow through the ordering process. Why do you see integration gap as one of your bottleneck, and how did you try to overcome that bottleneck?
So great question, Puneet. So this is where I would go back and refer to the quote, make the contracts work for you. So we did spend plenty of time understanding our legacy contracts, the clauses, the approvals, the quotations based on geography. So we did do some data mining effort early on and identified the parameters on ROI. Like how are we going to measure success for us by implementing a CLM solution? What problems is it going to solve for us? Do everybody align when it comes to problem statement? So having everybody in the process, from sales to RevOps to finance to our GC all the way to legal operations, having a stake at the table to define what is it for them to go through CLM journey. Because it is a heavy lifting across the entire company, across entire G&A function, if you will. Because I mean, even though we had an accelerated implementation, we did all of this within like 3.5 months, which is not easy. But we had our own share of challenges, but having clear definition of what those are upfront and making sure everybody's aligned that this is the problem statement we are going to solve, and this is how we are going to collectively measure the success, was a key attribute towards defining a method to the madness.
So knowing this contract management challenges, what really made you select Conga CLM as your tool and Forsys as your implementation partner?
Fair enough. So Conga is an industry leader in CLM, CPQ, or revenue lifecycle management. So Conga brought in the tools for us, and it was also the only cohesive platform where we made a strategic decision to migrate from NetSuite CRM and CPQ capabilities to Conga. And this was the only best-in-class cohesive platform that was available and that is out there that met our needs when it comes to data governance, API exposure to build automation with our downstream systems. At the same time, have best-in-class compatibility for our ecosystem of applications that we had. And Forsys brought the transformation expertise for us that we were looking for. They had the deep understanding of the CLM tool and the process gaps that we had, that we shared with them on how to objectively define a solution for each of those. And Forsys stood out as part of our selection process, vendor selection process. And that's where I think this was a happy marriage between the two, with Conga being the software manufacturer and Forsys being the implementation partner. For us, these two partnerships are very strategic. And this is not a short-term partnership for us, this is a long-term partnership, because how many times would you implement a CLM system? How many times you want to go through the same journey? So it is very important for us to make the right choice upfront, and we definitely took our own share of fair time, and we went through the selection process to arrive at that conclusion.
And especially in case of Picarro, I remember we had that conversation, and he mentioned about the regulatory compliance and the risk that was out there, really giving a good picture of how the overall clause library, template library set up, and how bringing in the clauses, region-based clauses conditionally, and making all of that happen to generate that contract 100% accurate every single time for every single deal, it was definitely the key for Picarro. And that is where our expertise is not just thinking through that particular clause library or template library, but overall how that flows into the business, what is the importance of that into the business, was very much helped us getting into Picarro's implementation also, right? So thank you very much for that. Now, we talked about the contract challenges, we talked about the why Conga Forsys. Now, as part of the implementation, what were the challenges that you foresee and how did you overcome the implementation challenges? Any specific to during those 3.5 months that you mentioned that the implementation last, any specific highlights that you want to bring it up for the implementation challenges?
Sure. I mean, for us, it all started with ensuring that there is an alignment with all the stakeholders involved. And that begins with identifying all the stakeholders. So you may have heard this today. You want to make sure, as a common theme, that there is, RevOps has a seat on the table, is legal operations has a seat on the table, your GC or your Tonys have a seat in the table, but also your finance and IT has a seat in the table.
Yeah.
But don't forget the sales, who is ultimately on the, who is dealing with the customer, yeah, right? So it's very important to build a process that supports and complements each workflows. So for us, it took us a while to bring everybody onto the table and representation by the right leader from each function. I think sometimes devil lies in the details, and sometimes you want to make sure you have a clearly defined RACI chart. What are the orgs, what are the functions that are going to participate in your journey, and ensuring that they have a seat at the table to speak through their processes. So for us, I think we invested a decent amount of time to ensure that there's an alignment in what we are trying to do, what are the KPIs we are going to all measure, what is our time to revenue that we want to target, what are our SLAs when it comes to NDAs, for example. How are we going to measure that implementation of Conga CLM was successful to us? So having those upfront conversations with the team and getting aligned on those parameters was a key for us. Next was process mapping. I mean, this is where I think we did due diligence and partnered closely with Forsys to understand our legacy contracts, understand the contracts that were sitting in a shared drive. What are the clauses for a certain industry for natural gas? What are the common clauses and terms and conditions for industrial solutions? What are the TNCs for environmental? So having those clause libraries defined gave us enough understanding of what business processes to be built. For example, do you need entire automation between finance and legal when it comes to approvals? Or once legal approves, they can give the green light through a chatter to a finance person within the tool itself, and they can see that this is a summary of what the legal has approved. So there are multiple ways to achieve the similar outcome, and that is where we got a lot of benefit of Conga's capabilities in terms of chatter, in terms of shared library and clauses that we took advantage of. Solution design, we tried to do a lot within these 3.5 months. We did both buy and sell side agreements, along with separate workflows for each of them. And on top of that, icing on the cake was integrating all of that with our NetSuite ERP and existing CRM CPQ system. So it was of course, a big ordeal, but having a good roadmap, having clear defined parameters across each workflows and throughout the process in our journey helped us, be successful in our digital transformation journey.
Cool. That is where the process mapping and finding that gap, right? Solution design is the key for any implementation, be it on the opportunity side, be it on the account management side, be it on the CPQ side, even the price, just the pricing management on how you're pricing your products, be it on the contract side, you name it, that is exactly where expertise that needed to be there. Forsys does extend that expertise to be able to make sure that that mapping happens exactly how it should be to meet your business requirements. Okay, so good. Thank you for the implementation challenges. Now that we talked about implementation, what are some of the post-implementation challenges? Let's talk about that. In majority of the cases, the first and foremost challenge that any implementation or post-implementation you face is the adoption, right? People are not ready to accept, people are not using the system. So in your industry, in your world, what were those adoption challenges and how did you overcome those adoption challenges?
So for us, it was a huge cultural shift. Having, having a manual process in place where everything was manual, everything was controlled by subset of folks within cross-functional teams. And now, all of a sudden you put in a system in place that can track each activity and give you data on how long does it take to get an approval in place. It puts people on spot, right? So it is very important to, go through a good change management strategy, put a good communication plan. So for us, the biggest adoption challenge was this whole cultural shift of digital transformation, ensuring that all the way from my GC to paralegal to legal ops, every function within legal is comfortable with the use of technology. So this is where technology literacy comes into play, and we had to build very tailored approach in terms of when it comes to training, user training. So there is no one size fits all, so you have to figure out the right approach for your own organization, your own set of power users, your own set of day-to-day users, their day in a life, on what works for them. And having a cookie cutter approach that targets their training, how they can save few clicks or use technology like Copilot to redline their documents, can streamline their process. We integrated teams with Conga CLM or Salesforce so that they can be more cross-functional, effective collaboration. So having those tools at your disposal always helps, but it does not happen overnight. You have to understand, you have to build that relationship, you have to make sure your legal team defines what success means to them, and then you work towards achieving that. So for us, that was a big cultural change. The other shift was more around data integrity. Having a legacy NetSuite ERP, CRM, CPQ system, having plenty of hands around data at all times, from sales all the way to legal, did not have a good data governance model in place. So that identified a lot of data issues. So we went through a rigorous data conversion process that involved building a custom solution with the help of Forsys to filter out data, to convert our legacy documentation from paper, several thousands of paper documents, into PDFs, mining those data through an RPA solution, and then identifying where we have synergies. So for us, that was some of the initial challenges, because when you talk to an attorney, they would say, hey, this does not make sense. That TNC should be applicable to that clause or to that industry, to that customer. So without having a unified system, without having any data or reports, you cannot have an objective conversation with your team. So it is very important to put something in place where you can present data objectively and have those meaningful conversations.
Cool. So in normally, post-implementation, adoption is, of course, one of the challenge that certainly people need to address and overcome. But one of the additional term or additional thing that always everybody is looking for, and I'm going to introduce a new term here on the spot, is called RRR. It's robust, reproducible results is what you're looking for from any of those implementation, right? Tangible results. What are those tangible, quantifiable outcome that you want to get out of your implementation. So to just highlight some of that, Parag, can you highlight what were your tangible results that you see based on where you were and now post implementation? It's already like 6-8 months since go live. So what were the differences and what were those tangible results that you see and you can highlight?
Sure. First of all, I think it is very important for a digital transformation journey to have an executive leadership support. So, and that helps with your change management and adoption challenges as well. So having that in place also helps having those conversations. What are those metrics that your C-suite cares for when it comes to success or investment for any contract management solution? So for us, I think it started with visibility to renewals. We have, I mean, having a traditional legacy process, there was no visibility to what is out there that needs to be renewed in 3, 6, or 9 months. Having compliance metrics, you know, there was no way for us to quantify we are compliant X percentage at all times because it was a manual process. And we had many times run into challenges where we had to generate reports for different geographies and we were not able to do so. It was completely manual. And last but not the least, time to value and cycle time. So we could not quantify that before because the process was manual. And it was disparate between CRM and CPQ data in NetSuite, where the sales process starts in terms of leads, opportunity, and a contract and a sales order, now all the way to having a CLM system that talks directly to NetSuite ERP, real time, that identifies what opportunities now have been converted to a contract. It gives you visibility to volumes of contracts signed by week, month, quarter, your cycle time for NDAs or a time to value for a contract, all the way from initiation and intake process to execution of a contract. So now we had those metrics. So for us, it was a day and night difference. We achieved 90% compliance across multiple geographies by having a Conga CLM in place. We achieved 50% to 70% cycle time reduction from manual contracts, manual workflow to now automated workflow. And we achieved 100% visibility to our renewals. And that helped us in a greater magnitude when it comes to time to revenue, because we did not have any means to recognize that before. Now we had full visibility on what is out there that we need to chase, harass our sales team to go ask for renewals, ask for PO. So now we had full data to basically have those conversations with our sales team that we did not before.
So that basically brings back to my previous statement that I made about let contract work for you, right? Having no visibility sitting there in shared drive versus now giving you upfront notifications, giving you upfront information on when to renew, what to negotiate as part of the renewal, and getting all that information to you as part of the renewal cycle, plus solving some of the cycle time. Earlier it was 6 to 9 months for one contract to get signed. Now it's coming down to 2 to 3 months. Yeah. That itself is a big accomplishment for salespeople to drive more, right? And spend less time on actually doing and following up on the contracts. So that was one of the biggest benefit and tangible results that Picarro did able to accomplish.
And 6 to 9 months, because Puneet, you touched on 6 to 9 months. I just want the audience to be aware, why does it take 6 to 9 months? So environmental business is one of our BUs, which primarily runs off of federal grants. As you know, with current economic climate, federal grants is a big challenge. So a university would only place an order for an instrument when they have a grant. So that is why the sales cycle is slightly longer. They may put a lead and a quote pretty sooner, but by the time they get the grant approved, and by the time they actually issue a PO, it may already be 6 months in the past. But now, that process is a little bit more automated because now we have visibility to our CRM data in the form of Conga CLM. So that definitely accelerates the data. And having that integration with NetSuite, unifies the data governance from source system, which is now Conga, to NetSuite. So it is only one-way data traffic for us. So that is why it is very important to understand why it is 50% cycle time reduction from 6 to 9 months to 3 to 4 months now.
That's great. That's really great RRR.
Yes.
So, well, finally, I'll ask one more question. Being into tech and manufacturing industry, what would you recommend for any customers, any people out there? What information they should look for? What is it that they should look for while selecting the CLM tool?
I think they should definitely start with defining what is their digital transformation journey looks like. Where do they have opportunities for automation? Where do they have opportunities for integration? So it is very important to clearly define what those are. It is very important to go back and do process reengineering efforts to understand, is it just my sales cycle, like, my lead to code process is slow, or is all the way from RevOps where they get a sales order, but by the time they get an invoice, the invoice processing, you got to talk about all of those aspects of the process. That is just before it gets to even legal. So how much time does legal spend on reviewing your terms and conditions? How much time legal spends on moving the workflow across different functions? How much time does your sales ops take to understand, what are the TNCs applicable, or what is the price list for this particular combination of product that we offer? So it is very important to identify areas where you can actually automate and invest in those automations, because that is where technology can add value. That is where you can actually make your end user's life easier, where they do not have to spend time in mundane activities or tasks on a day-to-day basis. The other area I would highlight is, it's at the bottom, but I think it is very important, is scalability for growth. It is very important to understand what is your 3-year, 5-year plan when it comes to your business. It is very important to factor that into your system selection process and implementation process on what you're trying to do. Is it short term or is it long term? Is it strategic? So having that definition upfront always helps in your digital transformation journey. Do you want to migrate all your legacy contracts upfront, or can that be a periodic process with your RPA solution of choice? You either CCI or using CCI or a custom solution. In our case, we use custom solution, but we had a very clear definition upfront that we want to migrate last 3 years worth of contracts only. So having those conversations upfront is very important. Other than that, I would also emphasize on regulatory and compliance. If you are an industry that is subject to heavy regulation and compliance, it is very important to define what those are for you when it comes to GDPR or ISO 9001, or if you have data privacy and information privacy, information security requirements, what those are. So that helps in implementing a system and a process that you can measure and generate reports out of the box when the time comes on your compliance. So I would touch on some of these areas, and at the same time, please look back at your enterprise architecture, the kind of disparate systems, downstream systems you have that you want to integrate and bring onboard your ecosystem as part of your CLM journey, or for that matter, CRM, CPQ journey. So it is important to look into these parameters holistically on when you pick a partner of your choice or you pick a system of your choice.
Good. Sounds good. Thank you for that so much information. Finally, I'll just touch upon me coming from Forsys and what Forsys can offer as your revenue transformation partner, right? Our main focus is on customer excellence. Customer excellence. Customer is the key for us. Giving the right solution for the business you are in, understanding your processes end to end, not just focused on specific, just the clause library or just the approvals, rather than understanding the overall landscape and provide you the detailed information about the full MRI scan of your processes, and then identifying those specific pain points is where we really put our focus on. Definitely, so far we are the only partner who has already helped implementing, like I mentioned earlier, Conga Advantage platform with Hitachi Vantara, Hitachi Energy, and Nomura for the CLM part. We also have, we are the largest company who has the Conga expertise anywhere else other than Conga itself, of course. And we also try to see all of those developers or team members, everybody, they are all Conga certified before we put them onto Conga project. so that it always helps to make sure that they are also understanding what solution we are trying to put together and how to build and define that solution to be exactly meet the customer needs, right? I'll be there at Expo Hall. Please come if you have any questions about Forsys, about your implementation, about your journey, discussing about solutions. I'll be happy to help and happy to discuss. If not today, tomorrow, if we can set up a time as well. One more highlight I would like to make, and one of the key customer highlight. Entire of last year, I was involved with a key implementation for Forsys, which was NASDAQ. You saw NASDAQ on the keynote stage. There's another session at 2:30, I think. Julian Kapler will be talking about their experience with Conga, with Forsys, and how this combo, Conga CLM and Conga CLM CPQ and Forsys combo, helped them to transform their revenue operations. So please do plan to attend that session at 2:30 with NASDAQ as well, which will also give you further more insight on why Forsys and why Conga CLM. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, guys. That was great. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, ladies first.
Thanks so much for taking the question. Just to confirm, your CLM implementation is on the Advantage platform. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can you speak more to?
Sorry. You said Advantage platform?
Yes.
No, they are on Salesforce platform.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Oh, it's Conga Advantage. I see. Okay.
Yeah. Can you speak more to the strategic decision made around data migration, right? So you spoke about hundreds of existing contracts sitting in SharePoint. Appreciate any thing that you can share into the decision you made with your SI partner in terms of what's the data migration strategy, and talk more about the custom solution that was developed or used to migrate that into Conga. Thanks.
I can start and then you can chime in,
Yeah.
Puneet. So thank you for educating me on the Conga Advantage platform as well as for the questions. So, I mean, it was not an easy process for us, because having, hundreds and thousands of contracts for last 10, 15 years of the existence of the company, and migrating that on a digital solution in 3.5 months. So we strategically made a decision in partnership with our legal team on how far back do we go back to basically determine the right volume of data that can give them that intelligence around, where the business needs to be scaled, where there are business opportunities, and that was last 3 years. So it took us some while to get there, but I think that was the foundation on basically narrowing the period of the data extraction, and that also included close to 15,000 contracts that we had to migrate. So we evaluated Conga CCI, and there was another platform that Forsys brought in because of their transformation expertise, and we chose to use that platform because it was much more economical for us to sustain 15,000 contracts migration. So that's that. I don't recall the name of that platform, but I think, Puneet, you can.
It's called LexiShift tool, but it's other than just the cost effectiveness. It's more of, it's not just the extracting the data. We build a whole framework to directly create those agreement records in a way that you can review and validate before you can activate in the system. So that's whole thing, AI-driven, AI-enabled extraction tool, plus the insertion tool, the framework, that is what that LexiShift is all about. So it's as simple as just 3-step process. You upload your file, you extract the data, you create the agreement, and you're done. It's very simple. Again, I'll be happy to show you at the booth. Please come stop by.
We have another question right here.
Yep.
Great presentation, guys. For your contracts, how much are on customer paper versus on your own paper?
Great question. So for our natural gas and industrial solutions, 90% of the contracts are on customer paper.
Yeah. And do you have kind of two flows? Like, how did you address that challenge? And just talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So what we did was, I think, to find a happy balance that to reduce the time to value for the entire workflow, what we did was we started the process to narrow down the key set of documents, because you get different types of documents to support management services. Hardware had their own SLAs or TNCs. Software subscription had their own. So we picked and choose based on the volume of the deal. What are the critical set of documents that need to go through the process? So, and we had legal team own that decision. So then when we created the intake forms in our Conga CLM, it was based on types of the deals. So that was basically a very strategic decision for us to design the UI based on the type of agreements we are doing or deals we are doing with the different customers. And based on that, it gives them a choice whether they want to import the document or they want to generate the document based on certain TNCs. So in some cases where we need to use customer paper and we are fine with certain TNCs, we just imported their document and the clauses came over and we just went through the workflow and signed the contract. But whereas certain TNCs where it was on our paper, for example, if it was a renewal, it was on our paper and we just happened to just generate a paper pretty quickly on our template, get those internal approvals and send it out for signature. So that's how we made it work.
So generally, just to extend that thought, generally, buy side versus sell side, people do feel comfortable if it's in a buy side, it's a third party paper, right? It's easy to get in and then go through the review and approval process and you're done. But to get into those details also, even if it is a buy side, going through the your SRM process, going through the RFP process, and then going to the generating that buy side contract, if you were to set up all of that as well, that is also very sort of a strategic decision for a company to make that sort of a choice. It has its own flow. Buy side is a completely different flow than a sell side. But again, that's where having the right partner who understand both buy side, sell side contracts and the benefits, pros and cons of both would certainly help to make that decision and design that flow accordingly.
Thanks. Just one more. So for that, does the tool identify conflicts and flag them for users? That's awesome.
I think Xauthor has been
bet they love
phenomenal
that.
for us for that. We use Xauthor for that purpose as well. So
Okay.
it does flag some of those. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any more questions? We have time for one quick one.
Thanks again for the presentation. Could you talk a little bit about the volumes in terms of how many contracts and how many templates, if you're talking about internal templates?
Sure. I will speak for the sell side because I think that's more applicable for this context because of the complexity of our business model. So for sell side, right now we are, traditionally we could not measure, but on a given day, we are at least processing 10 to 15 sell side contracts and their life cycle is at least few weeks to a month. Because of different industries we support, natural gas has its own nuances, industrial solutions or sterilizers, chemical industries have just different set of parameters, and environmental business is whole, plethora of challenges that we have to run into. So from a volume of contracts right now, what we are processing is close to 60 to 70 contracts within a month by vertical. At least the majority of that is natural gas and then industrial solutions, and now environmental is dying down a little bit. All three verticals, yeah. And those are large contracts. I'm not including services and miscellaneous peripherals that go for supporting and all that for the product. It's just like brand new contracts.
Cool.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Parag and Puneet, for your time. We really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for attending.
Thank you. Thank you for the time.